Evelyn Maloney. I live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and I come from basically the Quebec side, up the Gatineau, as they say. And my relatives came here in about 1847. And I'm speaking specifically about my grandmother, great-grandmother on my mother's side. And her name was Catherine Timlin. She was from the Ballina area in County Mayo. She had tempestuous life before she arrived in Canada. She took the boat over, and I understand it was possibly from Westport. I understand this from relatives in Ireland. She had, before she took that boat, she had been married to a man named Francis O'Boyle. They had 2 children, and he and the 2 little boys died, and I understand it was from potato fever. Or famine fever, and I understand that the priest approached her with money for her to come to Ireland or to Canada, and she came with her sister and her brother-in-law and their 2 children. And on the way over, the sister and the brother-in-law and the children died, and my mother always told me that they had to bring a shroud. It didn't matter anything else, but they had to have a shroud to get on that boat. So my great-grandmother, they called her Kitty Timlin. She bribed some of the sailors with biscuits she had brought on board so she could have a small wake in the bowels of the ship. Before they put her overboard. So she passed through Grosse Ile, and she was well and didn't have to linger there very long, if at all, and came up. And so there's a kind of a different story about what happened, how she got up to the Gatineau, but we do know that there was a relative of her former husband up in the Gatineau, and that's why she went up there. And she met somebody, and who William Holmes was his name, and she married again. And what we find extraordinary is that by the time she married for the second time, she was only 22 years old. And she 2 weeks after her first child was born, she walked from this very remote rural area in the bush to get the ferry to cross over to the other side of the Gatineau River to a church to have her baby baptized. And she continued to live on the family farm, and we still have family who own it and work it as a farm. But Kitty Timlin went on to have 9 more children, and she died. She was born in 1825, and she died in 1911. My mother, who was a little girl, about 7 or 8, remembers hearing her grandmother, it would be her grandmother, upstairs in a rocking chair, smoking a white clay pipe and keening. Whenever she would be getting a letter from home in Ireland, she was desperately sad and inconsolable. So the stories about Ireland came down through us, and it inspired us, I think, to be the best possible people we could be, because I realized that we who are her legacy here are like the dreams and the incarnation of the hopes she would have had when she came here.